Hello, my friend, and welcome to the 586th episode of the Sales Podcast. I'm Wes Schaefer, the Sales Whisperer, your host. Today we have a returning guest, Bob Moesta, and he truly is the most interesting man alive. He's a repeat guest. I loved having him on the first time. He's back with a new book, Learning to Build, the 5 Bedrock Skills of Innovators and Entrepreneurs. This guy has worked with literal legends in the entrepreneurial, manufacturing, leadership space. He has overcome extreme adversity and challenges and issues. And I asked him about that specifically. We talked about it a good bit on the first one, but he's just a smart dude. And the wisdom that he brings, and he's so generous with his time. It was a privilege. It was an honor to have him back. And his book is excellent, but listen to both episodes. Go check out what this guy is doing. Bob Moesta, Moesta. He should be better known. He's just super smart. I'll just leave it at that, okay? And you know what else is super smart? You know what would make you super smart is if you joined the not new, but rebranded Gorillas of Growth. You get to hear it here first. I've literally been working on this week. I've had the logo. It's the name of a group that I used a year and a half ago. A tech company had brought me in to train a couple dozen of their technical salespeople, and I made the name up on the fly, and because I liked it. I liked the GG, and I don't know if it's alliteration or some kind of mnemonic, whatever, but in marketing, in speaking, in poems, that type of sticks with people. So Gorillas of Growth. I've seen other groups with animals and climbing and whatnot. So, hey, I stuck with it and created a lot of content systems around what I do for that group. And so I'm just folding it into my, I've had the 30-day sales growth, make every sale. Make every sale is still its own thing. You can get that on demand, makeeverysale.com. The implementors, I've rolled that into the sell more of everything. So I'm taking all that, and it's now the Gorillas of Growth. And you can still enroll for a year at almost 50% off. You can join quarter by quarter. But same format, live weekly calls, private group, full access to the Make Every Sale content, 30-day sales growth. You get everything. So that'll make you smart, okay? Gorillasofgrowth.com. You heard it here first. I'll literally be tweaking some of the email deliverability. So, look, the main thing is you get access to me and the live calls in the group. And if an email misfires once or twice, cut me some slack, all right? Because I do what I teach you to do. I always say launch it, then build it. Although this is built, I do just have to tweak some of the email reminders that go out. But the content has been built for years because it's what I do. It's literally what I've done since 2006 to make every sale. All right, so join me, gorillasofgrowth.com. And now let's bring on our guest. Bob Moesta, the man who I labeled on episode 483, and I'm not lying. It's sitting up there since January 2021. It says the most interesting entrepreneur. Welcome back to the Sales Podcast. How the heck are you?
Yes, thanks for having me back. I'm doing very well. How about yourself?
I'm good. So I was 483. Now we're on 586. So I guess right around 100 episodes, I got to have you back, right?
All right, that's good. Good. Every 100, I'm more than happy to come back as long as I can help people, and I'm interesting for your audience.
Yeah, I loved speaking with you. I love staying in touch. You got a new book, Learning to Build, the 5 Bedrock Skills of Innovators and Entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
And I'm glad it is bedrock, right? Because, before we hit record, I was sharing with you how everybody I'm working with right now, I'm helping with the fundamentals around communication. I don't want to say dumbing things down because it sounds dumb, but we've got to simplify things. When we're talking to somebody that is not an expert in our field, we have to dumb things down.
Well,
right.
I think we actually need to we have to see it from their perspective. And so that's the things we would say we dumb it down, but we actually have to meet them where they're at.
Yes.
Right. And so part of the problem is we feel like we need to educate them about our stuff, and they really don't give a shit.
Yep.
And so part of this is we have to actually come to wherever they are, and whether we think it's down or up or right or left, that's not relevant. The fact is we need to actually understand where they're coming from, because at some point in time, us just talking about our features and our benefits don't actually resonate with them 99% of the time.
So what does resonate? Benefits do. Come on, man. What are we talking about?
Ooh, do you want it faster? Do you want it, easier? Do you want what? Everybody can agree to mom and apple pie, but that actually doesn't help people solve problems or make progress. And so part of it is, what does faster enable you to do? If it's faster, does it save you time? Does it actually make you more productive? What's the real outcome you're looking for? Not the measurement. Like, I might want to lose weight, but the reality is the outcome is I want to be able to go ski. Nobody talks about skiing. They talk about, how much weight did you lose? That's irrelevant to me, because I want to learn. I want to be able to ski with my family.
Yeah, because underneath that, I always like to ask people when they finally call, they set up a meeting. I like to ask, in the last day, last week, last month, what happened?
Yeah.
What happened that tipped the scales that you finally reached out and agreed to meet? Because something happened, like that losing weight. Maybe it was the dad that, his son outran him for the first time ever.
Exactly.
Or he didn't have the energy to play ball with his son afterwards, or the wife didn't have the energy to dance, and her child's getting married. She wants to look good in the dress and dance all night long. Yeah.
That's right. So this is so the way I frame it is why now? Like we can always talk about so this is where, I feel sorry, because most people think about the total addressable market as how many people out there can I sell to? And what they don't realize is they think about, well, there's, 18 million small businesses. Yeah, but how many people are struggling? Because most people don't need help unless they're struggling. So of the 18 million, how many are struggling with this or struggling with that? And so part of it is the why now is equally as important to who. So I always say it's who, when, where, and why. Mm-hmm. That defines a market. Yeah. Not just who. Most people define the market by who. Right.
I tell my clients, when we're talking with prospects, we are disqualifying.
Yes.
And it's not semantics, because I say, look, at right now, right at this hour, 11:42 a.m. on Wednesday, October 12th, 2022, there are only single-digit percentage of prospects who are ready, willing, able, acknowledge that they have a problem and can invest in it. So maybe tomorrow, maybe next week, and more. So maybe you can sell 20 or 30% of that market, but maybe only 1% today, 1% tomorrow.
I always tell people the thing you need to leave them with when you've disqualified them is tell them what has to happen for them to be ready for you. Right? Don't tell them the benefits. Oh, I'll call you back in 6 weeks. It's like, if this happens, if you need to increase deposits, or you're starting to focus on small businesses, I can help you with both of those when that happens. But until that happens, you know what? We're probably not the right fit for you.
Yeah.
Right. And most people are trying to sell everybody. And the fact is you have to realize, like, people convince themselves, and it's mostly that context as much value as your product. But we have to find the right context to actually where people are ready to buy our product or to use our product or to create value from our product.
Yeah. Yeah. Everybody tries to, I think they have, 497 features, and they think the prospect needs to need all 497 features to sell it to them. And I'm like, dude, no.
I will tell you, in my experience of 40 years of building product and helping to build businesses, there's no more than 5 features that people really need. And what happens is when you add too many features, they will then want to discount for the features they don't need. So it's like, oh, this is $100,000. Oh, I only need this part. So I think I only need it for $80,000.
Mm-hmm.
And so feature loading actually is counterproductive to actually figuring out kind of like what the pricing should be. Because when you overload the product, when you over engineer the product and they don't think they need it, they will literally ask for a discount. But if I literally don't even talk about that feature because I understand their context, they'll actually be completely happy not even knowing about that feature and still pay full price.
Yep.
So this book I wrote is really about going back to the basics and going back to the foundations. And I call it the 5 bedrock skills of innovators and entrepreneurs, meaning what are the things that really successful entrepreneurs and innovators know how to do, and they can do it consistently over and over and over again. And so, at some point, I had my youngest child move out, and I kind of went up to the attic and go, all right, we got to start cleaning this place out, because at some point we're going to want to downsize here, right? And I ended up having 847 notebooks. And I'm like, what am I going to do with these? I'm like, let's get a dumpster. My wife goes, nope, you should look at them, just reminisce through them. And next thing I know, I'm like, okay, I got to write a book.
Nice.
So that's how this book came about. It's really paying homage to, if you will, what I call my 4 core mentors, who are Dr. Genichi Taguchi, Dr. Willie Moore, Clayton Christensen, and Dr. Deming, who, I had 3 closed head brain injuries when I was very young, and I can't read and I can't write. And so I look at it as like I was just a vessel at 18, where I was told to be a baggage handler at the airport. But it turns out that I'm able to work on over 3,500 different products. I've literally built everything from software to weapon systems to food to, you name it, I've pretty much worked on it. And it's kind of like, how is that possible? And the other part is I've worked with so many people that I kind of took who are the extraordinary people I've worked with, and kind of put them in a corner and go what can they do that most people just don't do that well? And that's how I got to the 5 skills, right?
Did you meet all those people?
I worked with all those people. Those are all people I worked with. Nice. So Dr. Deming was the gentleman who went to Japan in 1952 and helped them rebuild Japan. He worked for MacArthur, but ultimately he became the father of the quality movement, and he helped build the Toyota production system. And I got to meet him when I was 18, 19 years old, and he was 85. And I sat down next to him and I asked him, the way he says it is, I asked him 52 questions in 22 minutes. And he just turned to me and goes, you are a curious kid. How'd you like to be an intern for me this summer? And that's how that happened.
So let me ask you what might be a crazy question.
Yeah.
Are you, I don't know if glad or happy is the right word, but that you had your head injuries and things
I think
changed?
So the way I would tell it is that, and it's more about being dyslexic, but I would say it's the greatest gift I ever got that I would never wish upon my children. Right. And so what I believe is that quote inability or disability had created super abilities. So one of the things I can do is I can see patterns, and I can see read emotion, because I can't read books. And so I have to learn in very different ways. And most of it is through conversation and observation. And so my skills in observation and conversation are almost 10 times that of most people, because that's the only way I learn. So I have to ask questions. I have to actually, and I'm not afraid of being wrong, because I already know I'm wrong, right? So one of the liabilities I think people are saddled with is they don't talk until they know, or they really don't start building anything until they know. And what I know is I'm never going to really know. I have to go build to learn. And so that's one of the bigger differences is most people don't start until they feel like they know everything. And I start because I don't know anything.
Yeah.
Very different.
Yeah. There was an interesting study, they took 2 groups of kids in class, and it was I think they had them craft a coffee mug or something, something rudimentary that anybody could learn quickly. And so one side was paid for the quality, right? Like this beautiful mug. And the other was paid on quantity.
Yep. Number of mugs.
Right. And the quantity group won because they both made more and better.
Well,
because in the doing, they got better. Right.
That's right. That's right. Well, I think the other part is you start to realize is that when you're supposed to make the best, there are no trade-offs. And if you really look at life is full of a whole bunch of trade-offs, and nobody teaches you. So one of the skills here is identifying and managing trade-offs. Really good innovators and entrepreneurs know what not to do. they know what to focus on. They know how to say no, and they know how to prioritize and sequence the work in the right way, as opposed to like picking and trying to do all of it. Like it's, I always say, trying to put 10 pounds of shit into a 5-pound bag. Like you can't do it.
Right.
You can, but you're just going to make a mess. And what you realize is what's way better is to build, what I say is build a kick-ass half as opposed to a half-ass whole. Right. This is where, when you have something that has 25 features, I'm like, yeah, you don't understand what your customer really wants. You're literally just listening to what they say and parroting back, like, oh, they say they want a calendar. Oh, they say they want an easy login. Oh, they say they want, and you're building all of this stuff, but that has nothing to do with what they really want. Like, most people don't understand that people lie, and they lie to themselves. And most of the time they speak in pablum, like some level of like, oh, I just wish I want it to be, I'd buy it if it was easier to do. Oh my God, we got to make it easier. There's 22 dimensions of easy. I can't make it easy everywhere. What does easy mean? And they're like, I don't know. They just want it easier. And so this is why coming at it from that product side and then moving into sales has helped me a ton, because I realized that I can't go build everything. And if I understand what people really want and understand the outcomes they want and the context that they're in, those two things define basically where my solution needs to perform. And 9 times out of 10, that's how I'm able to develop so many different things, as opposed to coming up with an idea and saying, who wants it? I literally go study people to say, where's the void in their lives where they want to make progress and they can't? And I'm going to go build a product to fit in there.
Yeah.
And so it's almost a reverse.
Find a need and fill it.
That's exactly right. But how do you find a need when people don't know what they want and they don't know what's possible? That's skill number 2, which is called, they know how to uncover demand. So what's interesting is most people have been taught that supply and demand are connected, and that demand doesn't exist without having supply, because that's what the economists tell us, right? And I was told as an engineer the greatest lie in the world, which is build it and they will
come.
Exactly. And the reality is it's a lie. I built many things and nobody showed up.
Yeah.
Right.
Well,
and so part of this is that you have to go to them and you have to meet them where they're at. And at some point in time, they might need your product, but they might need it for a completely different reason than the other person. And it's not your feature, we look at our customers through our product. And what I would say is you need to hop over the wall and look at it by living in their shoes and understanding how big is that problem and what is the bigger outcome that they're really looking at, as opposed to just buying a new CRM. Like, why do they need a new CRM? Why do they need one now? Like, what happened to the old one, right?
I say this all the time, right? Like, so I love your office. Like you were showing me earlier, 8 cameras, so I can literally see your office.
Yeah.
And in my training, like doing outreach, I'm like, picture this person you're calling. They have 2 screens. They may have 2 computers, you know, their keyboard, they got books on their desk, they got papers, they got expense reports, they got invoices they're supposed to sign, all this crap they're behind on. Somebody's standing at their door and the phone rings.
Yep.
And out of a habit, they answer it. You know,
yep,
Bob here.
Yep.
What's going on right there? What's going on in Bob's head? How do you approach? Do you even notice how Bob answers? Bob here.
Exactly.
Or Bob, or accounting,
hey,
you know, or
hey,
this is Bob. This is Bob. How you doing? Thanks for calling. How can I help? All of that tells me something.
All of that tells you something. That's, I think, one of the keys that most people aren't actually learning, which is it's not what they say, it's how they say it.
Yep.
Right. And it's the how that actually tells me more. So for example, I'll say like, if somebody, if I talk to somebody about something they're doing, and they're like, it was, boy, that was really good versus, boy, that was really good. It's the same transcript, but to be honest, very different next question. The one with the pause where they go down is where you're going to say, so what was wrong with it? And if they actually didn't pause and went up, that's where they're actually like, they're really excited. Like, what did you love about it? Like, but you have to read the situation. And this is where, again, this is why I don't believe in scripts. I don't believe it. Like, I think people need to realize that selling is a very human thing, and that we need to take the time to really understand humans, because this is why I'm not afraid that AI will not replace basically real sales. It will replace order taking. It'll replace logistics. It might replace the transaction, but most people can't figure out what to do next without help.
Right. Yeah, for sure. And I don't know how I figured this out, but like talking about over engineering, I've for 15 years now, I've sold CRMs,
Yeah.
complex systems
Yeah.
for most people, right? And I dug in, I figured them out, and I sell a lot of it. And this one particular line I was selling and wrote a book on it. And, I'd have a one call close, right? $1,500 setup, $300 a month, lots of onboarding, and I'd sell it in about 45 minutes, on the first call. And people were
go like, how'd you do that? Right.
Yeah. Cause they're like, I'm having 3 1-hour calls over the course of a month. And then I'm having to discount it. And I'm like, cause you're showing all the features.
Well,
because people log in, they get
two things.
Yeah.
You're telling them too much and you're not listening to what they're actually saying.
Right. Because the people show me, go, okay, show me your CRM. Like I'm a dancing chicken. Right. And I'm like, I'm happy to show you this CRM. Yeah. It has 4,692 features. How much time do you have?
Right.
Well,
yeah. And then they'll say, and then you say, like, of all the things, like, why are you looking for a new CRM? Not like at some point, I don't want to waste your time. I don't want to waste my time. So help me understand, like, why are we looking for a new CRM now? Right. And once you start to get them to talk about that, they'll talk about all these things like, well, you know what? We do some of that, but and you start to actually have a conversation about the reality of this. And like you said, how hard it might be. And what, there's some onboarding, and like most people don't want to talk about the negative sides of it, but at the same time, the work that they put in is part of the value they get out of it. And so when we make things too easy, that's why our satisfaction scores are actually too low, because we give them very high expectations and we can't meet them. Mm-hmm. And the more you can say, it's like, well, this is work. It's usually not as much work as they think it was going to be.
Yeah. Yeah. Right? They call it accentuating the negative.
Exactly. So but I think part of it is because you understand that sales is more human and it's less about the product and it's more about them and understanding how they want to make progress. Like, why now? And what are they hoping for? And what will they be able to do once this is in that they couldn't do now? Which is like, look, I need to spend more time with prospects than putting data in and trying to figure this shit out. Mm-hmm. Oh, okay. That's great. I can help you with that. Oh no, I need to get a feel for the funnel. Okay. Same product, completely different job.
Yep. Yeah. Like, do you want to look at the engine? Do you want to look at the transmission? Do you want to look at the entertainment system? Do you want to look at the heated seats? Like, you tell me, and that's where we'll focus.
Right. The other part is to make sure that you get past the CRM to say, what will the CRM enable you to do that you can't do today? And most people just think, well, they want a CRM. So let me just put like it's a CRM. And it's like, yeah, but how do we make sure we put the eyes on the prize? Nobody's prize is a CRM.
Right.
The prize is more sales. The prize is actually scaling the service. The prize is basically not letting things fall through the cracks. Like, what's the prize to them? And it's not 100 things. It's 3 or 4.
Yeah. So years ago, 98, 99, I sold mobile homes.
Oh, I sold homes. I love selling homes. It was so much fun.
Oh, I made so much money. And so in the summer of 98, we had sponsored this NASCAR, like on the junior league. I forget what it's called. Yeah. And so we had this giveaway, right? And so everybody that did a tour got entered to win. And then 10 people were flown to the Richard Petty driving experience.
Wow.
And the company set up a double wide mobile home in the infield. So those 10 people, after they drove, they were given one key and one of them unlocked the door. So they won that home. Right. So this is, I don't know, like a $40,000 mobile home back, 24 years ago. So, I mean, it's a little bit of money.
Yeah.
And they also got a satellite dish with it. Right. Yeah. So I remember to this day, the summer of 98, they hand the woman a phone that she won and she calls, she says, honey, I won. And it comes with a satellite. I was freaking blown away. Right. A satellite dish, you Dish Network, you can get it on your own for a couple $100. Right. She won a house
and a satellite,
but the satellite tipped it over the edge. Right.
Well, but that's
still remember that.
there's a guy that I worked with in Japan. His name was Dr. Kano, and he would talk about that there's three types of quality properties. One is what he calls basic quality, things that people expect. And if you do them really, really well, they don't really return anything. It's just that it's what people expect. It's like brakes on the car. Like if the brakes don't work, you're going to be pissed. But if the brakes work, you're not like, oh my God, the car stopped, right? So that's basic. The second one is performance, which are the things that you expect to happen. And when it does it, you're very satisfied. And when it doesn't do it, you're very dissatisfied. Think of gas mileage, think of acceleration, things like that. But there's this third type, which is things that they don't expect and they struggle with. So the notion of like heated seats or remote start, those were all things back in the day when I was like, those were so much excitement. And then what happens over time is what was excitement becomes performance, and what's performance then becomes basic. So over time, it all evolves down. And so part of it is you've got to constantly be looking for what are the things that people struggle with that they don't expect you to solve. But when you do solve it, it's like, oh my God, this is amazing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's so good. So from exciting to performance to basic. Yep.
Yep. And over time it happens. And so whatever was excitement last year is usually performance this year, which will be then basic quality next year.
Mm-hmm.
And so you've got to be able to understand, like, you can't compete on basic quality. Like Comcast tried to say, like, we're up 99.9% of the time. Like, okay, I expect you to be up that much. And all I really do is if you go down, you get it up as fast as you can. And I'm not out for 3 days.
Right.
Like, you know, that's not excitement quality, but everybody's trying to make it excitement quality.
So how do you avoid feature creep, right? Like talking about CRMs, you know, Infusionsoft, they had to rebrand and totally redesign, recode their software. They still have, you know, what they call classic or max. So it's super powerful, just not as pretty to look at. And now they have something that's pretty to look at, but it's much simpler. But people are always complaining, oh, it doesn't do this. Oh, it doesn't do that. You know, because like Henry Ford, right? If I asked the consumer what they wanted, they'd say a faster horse.
Right. And the next question should be is what could you do with a faster horse? Because what happens is they don't even know a car is possible. So part of this is there's two angles to this. One is feature creep happens for two fundamental reasons. One is, and this is really a rabbit hole, so I hope you're ready to go down it, which is one is engineers who come up with ideas of ways they can do things. And then they bring it to people going like, would you like this? And they're like, oh my God, this is amazing. I would love this. But they actually never use it.
Yeah. Right.
And so part of this is just because we create it, just because we can build it doesn't mean they're going to come to it. And we keep adding, if we look at roadmaps are almost about imagining what we can build versus what do people need. And so we're constantly trying to push more and more things on people when we actually don't actually know what they want because we don't study them, we study the product. So a lot of feature creep comes because we can build it and it seems pretty cool. And when we ask people about it, they all say, oh my God, I'd love to have that, but nobody's using it, right? So that's one. The second comes from the salespeople. Basically, when they don't get something or they basically get rejected, they come back with a list of things that if it had this and this and this and this, they would have bought. But what you realize is when you actually go interview people of why they didn't buy, those were just excuses to basically get you to walk away. Boy, if it was just lower price, we could have closed the deal. 9 times out of 10, people are paying way more money than they say, but price is the only thing that most people can't negotiate off of, like, oh, sorry, we can't come down on our price. We got to leave. And so it's the easiest way to shut you up. And so what happens is we end up getting bombarded both from the technical side and from the sales side about all the things we have to do to close the deal when they actually don't spend the time to understand what progress people are really trying to make. And when you understand that, it's not that I need 100 things. I actually might need 3 really different sets of things to help people make progress. And when we put it all together, people don't need it all. They only want the parts that are relevant to them right then and there. And so a lot of times we have a product that actually should be 3 products and not 1 product, right? So I helped a company called Intercom do this, where they actually had 1 product, and we found out that people hired it for 3 really, really distinctly different reasons. And they actually hired it. Like, one is to help me engage new customers. Another one was help me, basically onboard them. And a third one was basically, we use it for support tickets. And it's like, wait, why do you do that? And it turns out that when we actually turned that 1 product into 3 different products, they grew over 10x.
Mm.
Right.
So it was for unique
Value
because
proposition.
intercom, it was hardware, right? Was it like speakers?
Intercom is not hard. Intercom was software. They're basically a software platform that you buy when you're building a new app, or you're building some kind of software platform for yourself. It's like, I need a chat, I need a CRM, I need a help desk, I need all these different pieces. And so they pull together a bunch of different pieces to say, like, here's one database that all of the stuff will play in.
Right. Gotcha.
And they went from, let's see, I got involved when they were about 2.5, 3 million. And I think they're over 500 million in sales now.
Oh my gosh.
But part of it was separating it out and not realizing it wasn't about one value proposition, which was their feature and benefit at the time was like all your data in one place. Like that's what everybody said they wanted. But when we did it, like all your data in one place was not actually the reason why they bought.
Right. Yeah. People don't really know.
Right. Well, they don't well, one is customers don't know what they want, and they don't even know what's possible. So a lot of times, to your point, is if you ask people what they want, they're going to say they want faster horses. They're not going to say they want a car. Yeah. And at the same time, the fact is, but if I get to find out what the outcome is they want from faster horses, I then can actually put in many different technologies to help them actually figure out how to do that. So an airplane can fit in there as well as a truck, as well as a car, as well as besides faster horses.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I always ask people. Oh, go ahead.
We would call that, how do we actually understand technology agnostic requirements of the customer? What does the customer want to do, irrelevant of what they buy? So like, how do we describe the situation they're in and the outcome they want, so we can put any solution in there?
Technology agnostic, what outcome?
Requirements. Like, what are they actually trying to get to? What progress are they trying to make? And so it was very hard in the beginning because I'd always want to ask them about the product. But when you get really good at understanding what they want, you realize that I can figure out how to, describe a problem where I actually have 4 or 5 different underlying technologies I could use to help them make that progress. And to be honest, then I can actually design a better product because I'm more focused on them as opposed to let's say the technology I have.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I always knew when somebody's looking at the CRM, I knew that they were concerned about its complexity, right? Can they learn it? Can they master it? Can they really use it instead of just donate and have it sit there?
That's right.
And affordability and would they have the time to learn it and master it and whatever? So I would always just pull up a little text editor and I'm like, walk me through your day. Tell me your biggest irritation right now.
Yep.
Well, like entering this or following up or launching a webinar or launching a new campaign. Like, walk me through that. How do you currently do it? And they show me and just a Word document, just an outline. Okay, and then what? Oh, do you assign a new owner? Yep. Okay. How long does that take? Okay. Then it's handed back. Okay. What about outreach? How do you communicate? Phone, email, text messaging. Yep. Okay. And then I keep that up. And I just open a screen right next to it. Okay, now it's relative. I'm like, do you do trade shows? Yes. Oh, it's a pain. Names get lost. Takes a long time to follow up. Okay, well, how would you like it? And I go, okay, look, enter a name. Boom, they're added to a list. They're added to 7 lists. Prospect, trade show prospect, Las Vegas, October trade show prospect. Okay, so now we can mix and match there, and you can email to just them. You can email to any trade show prospect. Okay, and we go through. Do you want to send an email right away, or maybe wait 10 minutes after they leave the booth? Then you message. Oh, that'd be great. Yeah. And then maybe an hour later you text them. Oh yeah, and I drag it and I go, how hard was that? I go, that was so easy.
Right. So
then what's going to hold you back? Nothing. Right. Like I want it.
So this is now element number 3 in the book, called causal structures. Is that Deming would always say, if you can't describe what you're doing as a process, you don't know what you're doing. Right. And what you're doing is in a lot of places, a lot of times people don't even know that they have a process. They just do it. And so the first thing you're doing is just slowing it down and then making it a process. And by making it explicit, now you can improve it. And so the whole thing is nobody's actually slowed them down enough to figure out what those steps are. And like you said, it's mapping it out on the screen so they can go like step. Oh, okay. Then this happens. It's like first time they've ever seen the process live. They've only lived it. They haven't actually seen it. And this is the difference. I always say there's a difference between working in the business and working on the business, right? And ultimately, you can't work on the business if you can't see it.
Yeah. I'm taking lots of notes.
Yeah. I think that's a really important point. So the five skills are: one is empathetic perspective. How do you see things from your customer perspective? But also, really good entrepreneurs can see it how engineering is going to look at it, and how is manufacturing going to look at it, and how does the bank look at it, and how does accounts payable look at a really good innovator entrepreneur can see things from all these different perspectives and almost like see around corners. They can see things that are going to happen because they're not putting their bias on it. They're actually trying to strip their bias away and say like, oh, this is how the finance guy is going to look at it. And this is how the tech guy is going to look at it. And this is how the salesperson is going to look at it, and like realize like they're in conflict. And my job is to actually reduce the conflict between them. And if I do that, then I can help them. They'll buy from me. Mm-hmm. Right. The second one is really uncovering demand. They usually focus on struggling moments. So they figure out the need by understanding where do people struggle and where do they want to make progress but can't. The third one is causal structures. It's that whole notion of laying out the process and being able to understand how things work. And they're curious about how things work and they want to make things better. The fourth one is, we haven't really hit on it, but it's this notion of prototyping to learn. It's that most people prototype to verify. But what we really do is I might say like, well, why wouldn't you use Basecamp, or why wouldn't you use Salesforce? And people go like, why would you tell them about the other competitors? I'm like, because I'm going to learn about why they don't want it or what they like about it. And so yeah. The fourth skill is really about helping you realize like the only way we really learn is what I say, contrast creates meaning. So if I only show them my product and I don't know their reference point of what else they have, I have to be able to understand I need other data points to actually get the contrast so they can create the meaning of why my product is better for them than somebody else's.
Right? Yeah. The analogy I always use, like for sales, like car salesmen, if I'm a Ford salesman and you pull up in a Chevy,
yeah,
I don't berate you for buying a Chevy.
Right.
Right. I compliment you. I'm like, dude, you got a 10-year-old truck, right? I'm like a rock. Why are you switching? That's a great truck. I mean, dude, I'm happy to get those on trays that they sell. They're great. What are you talking about? This thing, it's leaked oil from day one. The transmission sucks. I can't tow. The gas mileage was a freaking lie. The AC, it's never blown cold. I'm like, oh, wow. Yeah. Okay. So, now I know how to sell to them.
But that's a form of prototyping to learn. Like right. One is you don't attack it. You actually compliment it and let them come back and tell you what's not good about it. Right.
They tell you how they want to buy.
That's exactly right. That's what demand side sales was all about, is like, let's not build the sales process of how we want to sell. Let's actually build the sales process so it helps people understand how they want to buy. Yeah. And though we think of buying and selling as the same thing, it's kind of like teaching and learning. What happens is you realize that teachers know how to teach, but they don't teach the way people learn. And so you start to realize that it's the same kind of thing. We use them actually rarely, like almost like synonym, like they're the same thing, but they're actually opposites. One is about giving, one is about taking, one is about actually pushing, the other one's about pulling. And you start to realize like we need to understand they're actually very different mechanisms of how people buy and how we sell. And so one of my favorite questions for people is like, so where are you in your buying timeline? And they look at me like, what do you mean? I'm like, well, you start with, you don't really know much about the problem and you're just trying to learn. And then there's this point where you're diving in to look at all the different options. And then there's this other part where you start to really kind of decide and kind of narrow things down. And there's another part where you're passively looking like, where are you in this process of trying to figure out what you're trying to do? And like, oh, I'm here. Has very different implications of where are you in my sales process? They don't know because it's your sales process.
Yep. So do you, I cut you off on the fifth. You talking about prototyping?
The fifth one is this whole notion of identifying and managing trade-offs, knowing what you don't have to do. What realize is like, so for example, I always say like, if you look at Southwest Airlines, right? The most interesting thing is that they suck at snacks and food and they really don't care. You can write a recommendation like, I would love to have better snacks. What you do is you realize you're not going to not fly Southwest because of the snacks. You just learn to bring your own damn snacks.
Right.
But I got to be there on time. I want to be the lowest cost. I want to go to it. It competes more with driving than actually flying. And so you start to realize like, or not going at all. And so you start to realize, here's the things we're going to actually make very real. And these are the things we're just not going to give a shit about. And it's totally fine.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so
right.
good.
And when people come from Delta or United and go down to Southwest, they go like, oh my God, this is horrible. But the reality is the majority of people who fly Southwest compete with driving. So it's way better than driving.
Right. Yeah. I tell you what, though, they are so full. I fly them a lot. I'm flying them this afternoon.
Yeah.
I've got a lot of Air Force buddies that are Southwest pilots, and golly, so I set an alarm, right? So 24 hours before you can log in and check in, and that you got to get there to get your seat, right? I was 1 minute late. 1 minute late yesterday, and I am B49, right? A to 60. So 109 people checked in before me, but they're some are A-listers, right? Some are paid the executive thing or whatever to get early. And people are now, it used to be 15, now it's I think $25 each way for early bird check-in. So Southwest, I mean, they're smart, man, about they're getting premiums.
But here's the thing. Did you just hear yourself? You blamed yourself because you were 1 minute late. You didn't blame Southwest.
Yeah. I mean, that I know their system.
Right.
And
this is the point is, and as they see people are willing to value something, if you struggle and you don't want to struggle, you're willing to pay $25. Like I'll forget. I'd rather pay the $25 and not have to worry about it and realize that I'm going to be in the A group anyways.
Yep. Exactly.
By the way, most people, if they don't fly Southwest, don't understand what you're actually bidding for is a place in line to pick a seat because there is no seating. There's no fixed seating on Southwest, which is kind of amazing when everybody else does it. So again, they don't care about that.
Yeah. I just want an aisle seat. I don't care. Just give me an aisle seat.
And I want a window seat because I don't want anybody bothering me.
Oh, it's so fun. I just got a text as we're sitting here. So my flight's delayed 34 minutes. So, all right. I'm not in much of a rush.
We got a little extra time. Anyway, so I wrote this book primarily as a homage to my mentors and to kind of pass on what I've learned. And I did it primarily for innovators and entrepreneurs. But like at the same time, I'm realizing this is a really good set of tools for salespeople and for, school teachers and for it turns out that this is a very, very useful set of tools for other people.
Yeah.
And it's written primarily from a innovator's perspective, but it turns out that these are very, very, and to be honest, we all possess these skills. Like if we're trying to plan the week's groceries, we've got to take into account who's in the house and what do they like and what's going to happen on Thursday. And we have to have empathetic perspective, and we have to figure out what days would be special days and what days are going to be, where's the real demand? And then cause and effect is well, how much time am I going to have? What's the recipes I'm going to build? We do all this, but innovators and entrepreneurs double down and make these things 10 times, they're 10 times better at these skills than the average person.
Yeah.
And so part of it is it's practice and reps. And when you get really, really good at it, it all becomes second nature. Again, selling is second nature to you. You know how to ask the questions. And what most people are afraid of is, what am I supposed to say? And what you're most afraid of is what am I supposed to start? What question is going to help me get started first? And after that, it's all just regular conversation, right?
Yep.
And listening. So
totally unrelated.
Yeah.
What's the pic? What watch is that behind you on the wall?
Oh, that one. So I've been painting my whole life. And so these are, I have over almost 900 paintings.
Wow.
And the four that are behind me are basically about time. Mm-hmm. And so one of the things that watch is a Rolex GMT or Explorer 2 GMT. And what it is it's to remind me, the little arrow that's pointing down reminds me that it's home time. And so I always need to remember what time it is at home, because I've done 7 startups and I've traveled the world. And one of those things I knew is if I called it the wrong time, what was going on at home, it was chaos. And so I always wanted to make sure I knew what time it was, how my wife was doing, what was going on with the kids. And so I always wear a GMT watch because it reminds me of that. Nice. The second one here is actually a stanchion in a stadium. So my son played football in college, and one of the most hated moments was the 25 minutes before the game where everybody's warming up, but the game hasn't started. And my hand is in my head and I'm literally going like, oh my God, will this start? And so it's to remind me that I hate to wait. It's called waiting. And so one is I should always know what time it is at home. Two is I should never wait for anything because it's horrible. But the reality is like, this last one is I was in Milwaukee and this was a manhole cover that I took a picture of and then later did a painting of. And it's really about when things age and they actually have kind of, when they go through time, beautiful things come from it. And so realize that you need to accumulate beauty over time. And so time is one of those things like, I'm not waiting. I need to be always centered on home and realize, how do I build a body of work that's worth the beauty of what it can provide for people?
Yeah, that's awesome.
So that's, sorry, more than you asked for, but those are.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, I've got a few nice watches.
Yeah.
I don't have a Rolex yet.
No. I'm sorry? You don't have one yet?
I don't have a Rolex yet. I have a few nice watches, but that's my next purchase.
So I have I help a lot of entrepreneurs, and I always say if they make more than $10 million, they need to buy me a watch. So like, I don't really try to just help them. And so I have quite a few watches that just come in the mail and go like, thank you so much. And I have a couple of those that have all been gifts.
Nice.
So, yeah.
And for me, everybody that's a return guest on the sales podcast, they send me a watch. You know, I'm
do they? Okay. Which one do you want?
A Rolex. I don't have a Rolex.
Okay. Got it. Noted.
I want to ask you, so you mentioned what, 800 notebooks you had in the attic?
847. Yeah.
847 notebooks. You've written several books, but
wait, I got to get to, how does a dyslexic person write a book?
Yes, that's what I was getting at.
Oh, good. So the first thing is like, this is one of my books right here, my notebooks, right? This is from 1990. I don't know if we can zoom in maybe a little closer. It says 1990, right? Literally, I was in Cologne, Germany, right? This is Dr. Taguchi's, whatever he said, write a book. This is almost like 42 years ago or 32 years ago. Like, you should write a book. I'm like, nah, I don't want to do that. But like, if I go into some of these things, it's like, I started to dig and it's like, in the West, we test to prove hypotheses. And in Japan, they test because they don't know, right? It's like completely different whole notion of this notion of prototyping to learn. And so as I dug through all these books, I had a whole bunch of stuff in my head. And so I used a company called Scribe Media, right? That basically they helped me frame the book by who's the book for, what situation are they in, what outcomes are they working for, and then ultimately, what progress can your information help them make? And then what we do is we then take that information and break it into blocks or chapters. And then they just interview me in 10 2-hour sessions about the book. And I literally talk it and then they go off and write it. And so I can do a book in about 4.5 months. So I've done five books, 2 of them with Scribe. I've already got 2 more with Scribe. I'm working on another book already. So I've got a bunch of stuff I'm working on, but like as a dyslexic, this is like just a joy. Like I can literally get this stuff out of my head and I don't have to worry about, like, my big thing is doing the graphics.
Yeah. But can you read now? I mean, you're reading your own writing. So did you taught yourself to read, or you can read your own writing?
So what's interesting is, so if I've never seen it before, I can't read it. Okay. Right. But if I listen to it, and I then start to pick it up, I actually have I have an auditory like eidetic memory where I can hear it and then I can actually read it. So like if I listen to the Audible book, I can then see it. But the way that I actually learned how to read was my mom would say, like, when you see a paragraph, what do you see? And the first thing I said is the spaces. And she'd say, wait, what? I'm like, yeah, there's a space here, there's a space there, there's a space there. She's like, but there are words there. I'm like, yeah, but I know those words, but I see the spaces. And she's like, okay, where are the biggest words? And she gave me a red pen and I'd circled the 5 largest words in a paragraph. And then she said, all right, like, what are these 5 words? And I'd take the time, and the words had to be 7 letters or longer because I would see the right-hand side first and then the left-hand side. And so I'd have to figure out what that word was, and I'd sound it out. And then I'd take those 5 words and I'd say, and she said, what would those 5 words have in common? Why would they be in a paragraph together? And that's how I learned how to read.
And so were you born with a disability, or did the injuries create it or enhance it?
That, by the way, I think that's the chicken or egg. I for the longest time committed it to saying it was the injuries, but like I it might have been, I was born premature. I had a hole in my heart as in my septum, that basically I was blue for almost 6 weeks. So there's a whole bunch of things that could have been, and it could have been before, but by the time I was in third grade, so what would happen is people would read me a book and I could memorize them reading the book. And then I could fake reading the book to other people because somebody had read it to me. So my memory is really good on one side, but it's the comprehension and looking the words up that's broken in my head. And so I don't know but by the time I was 7, I had these injuries that were pretty sustained that literally caused me to kind of lose a lot of my memory, a lot of my processing of words, if you will.
Right.
It's a delay. But it's to be honest, again, I look at it as it was horrible growing up because my mom would basically say, we got to figure out, we can't tell people because at the time in 1972, special ed was going just to a room and sitting. You weren't actually taught anything. And so we did our best to kind of just make sure I could stay in the classroom.
Sure.
So that's kind of where I did that all the way through. And, my mom made pretty sure, like, don't tell anybody you can't read, just tell them you struggle. And so I was in all these different classes to help me read, but for the most part, I still can't really read.
Yeah. Well, you're doing phenomenal work, and you're still the most interesting entrepreneur ever. So
no,
thanks for coming back.
Just a regular, I'll say this. To be honest, I'm just like you. Like I like to grind. I like to help people. At some point I put my head down for 40 years and have been doing it. And now it's time to share, but it's one of those things where I have this notion of like, I didn't intend to be this person, but all this hard work has now enabled me to be in a position to share a lot more. So I truly appreciate you having me on and being able to share. And, I've kind of changed some of my metrics in my life. And one of them is, I want to be able to help as many people as I can before I pass. And so any opportunity to get on somebody's podcast and share what I've learned and what my mentors have taught me and how to pass it on is just really important to me. So I truly appreciate having me back on.
Hey man, my pleasure, my honor.
Thanks.
I'm going to go shower and pack for my trip, and hope you have a great day. Thanks for coming back on.
Yep. Safe travels.
All right. Bye-bye.
Well.
Look, I realize I'm a salesman, so, half of what I say is bullshit. Half is a tall tale. The other half is just an outright lie, and 5/4 of people are bad at fractions, but I'm not lying about this guy. Good guy. Like I said, get his book. Listen to the previous interview. So many writer-downers in this. Right. Go check out the video. See his office, the way he's got cameras all over. We were talking about that before we went live or hit the recording. And I think 8 cameras he set around his office. He's done over 900 paintings. But, some key questions in there. Where are you on your buying timeline? Understanding these causal structures. Edward Deming. I was a smart dude. I read his book years ago. And that was written years and years before that. These are fundamental principles, strategies that are timeless and in need right now. The fundamentals never go out of style. So check it out. Right. I'm encouraged by what he said about AI will not replace real sales. Amen to that. Where's the void? Right. Find a need and fill it. So just so many good things, but these, the 5 fundamentals, get those right and things start to fall in place. Okay. And if you need help with that, and it's hard, I get it. Life is hard. We're busy. We had all these plans, and then, my daughter got sick this week. I got sick. My mother-in-law's second husband, he fell 2 weeks ago, broke his hip. He's got dementia. We've been dealing with that. We had 2 weddings this summer. I had my reunion. I'm traveling to Phoenix next week to speak. I was in Austin last week for some training. I'm going back to Austin and Dallas in a couple more weeks. We bought a new car. I mean, things happen. You get busy. I get it. Things go sideways with a client. You lose a client. I had one canceled today or yesterday. They just didn't renew. But been a good client and probably renew later, and I may meet them in Dallas, renew some things. But, it's the ebb and flow of life. Does it freak you out? Does it sit you back on your heels? Does it knock the stuffing out of you? Does it take away your will to fight? It happens. So who is propping you up? Surround yourself with a good team, okay? That's what all of my training has always been about. I've always had an ongoing weekly call. In the past, it was my Infusionsoft Mastermind, and I would just take people's questions, show you how to do practical things, the important things, and do them right, do them quickly, and then answer questions around tactics and strategies, around sales, around marketing. Okay, then that evolved into other platforms. Then evolved into keeping it software or tool agnostic and focusing on the fundamentals. I've done that since 2007. Well, yeah, late 2006, early 2007. Because that type of ongoing reinforcement training is what changed my life. It changed my career in sales. So I just carry forward, pay it forward, right? The stuff that helped me. That's what the Gorillas of Growth program is for. You can join. You can work with me on a private basis, quarter by quarter. That's how I do things. You're going to pay over $10,000 for us to work together privately, and I don't really do anything differently in private than I do in the Gorillas of Growth program. I answer people's questions. If you're willing to speak up and raise your hand and have us all look at your website, your landing pages, your emails, your scripting, share with us your trade show strategy coming up, I will help you on those calls. Now, granted, there's a lot of people on the call. We may not get to you every single week, but you can ask questions in the group, and I do my best to answer those right away. So you still get me in a pretty timely manner. So if money is tight, if you're smaller, don't have a bigger business, that's a prudent way to start. Okay, so come join us, gorillasofgrowth.com, and make sure you're doing the 12 weeks to peak, 12weekstopeak.com, free. Have the last hard quarter the rest of your sales career if you do that program and stick with it. I guarantee it. I'll go sell something.